Garnes.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodall.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Strand.
Excused.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are returning from closed session with nothing to report out. Public comment, public presentations. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with the council or staff is not intended. Items requiring council action not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to 3 minutes.
Surprise, surprise. Nick Angeloff, 156 Grayland Heights Road, Mayor,
Welcome.
Council. And one major announcement, well, two. First, real quick one, I'll get the lights down by the weekend. I got to talk to staff about timing of the tree trimming. I thought I was going to be able to get a free man left, wasn't able to. Two, the Chamber of Commerce is holding the debates, if you want to call them, or candidate forums, Thursday, 4 to 6 at the Winema Theater for District 1. Rex Bone and Cliff Berkowitz, yeah, knew it was a B. And then I won't even try with all District 2 candidates. That's Saturday at the Chamber, 1 to 4. So please, guys, everyone show up, listen to the candidates, decide how you're going to vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Lehman, 160 Ogle Avenue. I
Welcome.
like to bring up a public hazard that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
My neighbors have, there's a trash rodent problem that needs to be addressed. It's becoming a health hazard and a fire hazard. So if that is not being dealt with. I've gone to the health department. I have gone to the city. I have gone to the police department. I have gone to the county code enforcement. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Nessen, 475 Painter Street, 40-year resident of Rio Dell. I'm here to support my friend Rachel. I've been to her house. It's disgusting next door. It's a health hazard. I've been in her yard when rats the size of cats are running across the front of her house. I think that there's something wrong with these people and they need help. And since she's gone every avenue possible, nobody seems to care. Somebody needs to come in there and help those people as well as help the neighbors, because this is becoming a real health hazard. These rats are chewing up her foundation. And, you know, if she wanted to sell the house, what property value is she going to get with rats running across her front yard? And people aren't stupid. So also, on my own personal thing, once again, I'm here to complain about the fact that sewer is not equitably distributed. The price of sewer is not equitably distributed based on the amount of people in the household. I know there's going to be a 2020 census. You guys will get that information as to who's in what household. There's one of me in that household. Barsdale's got nothing against them. They got 14 people there paying the same amount of sewage. Patmore's, love them. They got 12 people there paying the same amount. One person does laundry to 12, 14 people doing laundry, taking showers, peeing in the toilet, whatever. It's not fair. All of you ran for election, I assume, with the intention of improving this city. This is not right. You're constituents are not being treated fairly. Please do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Jonathan Brodier, 521 View. So I'm here to complain about the same issue, which I brought this up in the past. My water bill is $250, give or take a couple dollars, for me, my father, and my son. I don't feel that that's not my electricity bill I just paid was under $120 for this month, so we don't use a lot of utilities. $250. I just had a medical condition. I had surgery and post-op complications. Then my thing is jacked up to $500 plus the late fee, which then jacks it up even more. Now, granted, you know, who can expect, you know, medical whatever, but I mean, it's just not really affordable. You know, that's almost a health care per month right there for $250. And in the 7 years I've lived here, I think I started out at like $113 was the lowest I ever paid. So in the 7 years, if it's doubled, what is it gonna be in another 7 years? So something just needs to be figured out here, okay? So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else? Would anyone else in the public? Would you two back there like to say anything? Give it a try.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Robin May. I live at Columbus Avenue, and I've been in Rio Dell probably 7 years now. I like the city, and I think the city tries really hard to do a lot of things for all of its people. But there are things that, like the water bill, which I don't have injuries or anything, but I'm just me. And my bill was $116 this month. And that just really rocks my world, because that's just to take a shower, wash my dishes by hand, and you know, rinse my mouth out after I brush my teeth. So it's just not, it's not a good thing for older people if they're trying to make it on Social Security, which is what I'm trying to do. And every penny counts. So I would appreciate anything that the board could do to remedy that situation, even if it's a 15% discount if you pay early, or, you know, something like that that's creative, that still allows it to pay, but gives us somewhat of an incentive. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public care to comment? Make a comment? Make a statement? No? Okay. Then I will close public presentations and bring us to the consent calendar. Would anyone on the council like to remove one of the two items on the consent calendar? No? Anyone from the public wish to remove anything from the consent calendar? Hearing no one, I will then ask for a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Mayor Garnes, I would move that we accept the consent calendar items number 1 and 2.
I have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Motion carries 4-0. Staff reports.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. This item begins on page 11 of your agenda. Just a quick update, if you've seen contractors over on the Aloha Wildwood intersection, they should be beginning work on a Caltrans related project to repair damaged drainage in that specific area. So that's not part of the ATP project, but that is done in anticipation of the ATP project coming up here over the course of the next.
Is that just a support right now?
I'm sorry, what?
Is it just that there's Is it just that there's poor drainage at this time and they're fixing that?
No, the drainage has failed and there is a sinkhole on private property there. It is Caltrans's responsibility, so that was installed back in the 70s for the bypass.
Okay.
So it's a minor, it's not a huge problem over there, but it just has to get taken care of. The staff did hold a kickoff meeting with the city engineers to discuss the sanitary sewer evaluation study, which the city received a grant for, and that the council is aware of. And so the target right now is a 2-year window to try to complete the evaluation study to help make the city more eligible for grant funding for wastewater improvements, saving ratepayers money in that process. The council was invited for a tour of the River Bluff Cottages back on January 27th. And I think that tour went by pretty well. If there are any other council members who have not been able to attend that, and we can make some special arrangements while the facility is not full. We did meet with the city engineer to discuss our water capital planning effort, including any last minute changes to the scope of the overall proposal. And Caltrans is actually looking at potentially replacing the 2 bridges on the north end of Rio Dell on US 101, which also involves a city water main going across the southbound bridge. So we're in discussions about potentially realigning that water line. And then press release, and we did have, and the chief will chime in here momentarily on the homicide arrests. And also we do have a new sculpture in town down by the pizza place. So Dan McCauley was here on Friday and did install the Ibex Ram.
They took the owl out?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that this morning. I'll have to look.
So with that, maybe we can go to Chief Connor and he can give an update on the homicide.
Before you go there, I had a couple questions on yours.
Sure.
One is on I brought up to you before, I've been asked by another city council member and then some other people that there was supposed to be a second housing development going on in Rio Dell. And I told them, to my knowledge, that's not happening. I think that's a rumor. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's no other subsidized housing project going on in Rio Dell. There is another apartment complex currently under construction on 2nd Avenue. That's a private construction, but there is no current plan for another Danco type installation. And actually the parcel that they developed was the last zoned for that specific type of development. So there wouldn't be another similar type of development unless the general plan were updated and amended.
Okay, thank you. The other item was we had several questions on the water and sewer. Aren't we budgeted this year for water and sewer studies to look at our rates?
Yeah, so the best practice is generally every 5 years to be looking at the water and sewer rates.
So we are going to adjust that, take a look at what's going on for the citizens. And
yeah, I don't know that it's going to happen this fiscal year, but we're trying to get into that to look at that.
And that just, the point I'm making that is that there's been other complaints, and so the city budgeted this last budget session to do a water and a sewer rate study to address some of the questions that you're asking on how that's taken care of. So it's not that the city is deaf to this. The staff and council are working towards resolving it. That's all I have to say.
So, Jeff, if you
So as many of you know, Demetrius Coleman, the suspect in our homicide case from August, was taken into custody in New Rockford, North Dakota on January 26th. I had received information that he was in that area, and I alerted the Eddy County Sheriff's Department. New Rockford has about 1,200 people. They do not have their own police department. They're serviced by the Eddy County Sheriff's Department, which has a sheriff and 6 deputies. It was just kind of like talking to another small town department. They were pretty familiar with Mr. Coleman. He has a sister who lives there, and his mom lived there until she recently passed away. On the 26th, he was seen walking with a woman that they did not recognize. One of the deputies tried to contact him. Both people fled into a shed before the deputy could get enough other officers there to secure the shed. Mr. Coleman fled out the back and went into a nearby motel room. The deputy followed the male suspect. The female, who was Alma Ahumada Mendoza, his girlfriend, was able to escape capture at that point in time. They called in local resources just like we would. The PD down the road in Carrington sent 2 officers, and there were some other officers who responded for a total of 7, which is a pretty big turnout, and everybody wanted to know what was going on at the motel. But anyway, Mr. Coleman was taken into custody. He is currently booked in the Stutzman County Jail in Jamestown, which is about an hour's drive south from New Rockford. I flew to North Dakota, interviewed Mr. Coleman a couple of times. I must confess that I am not cut out to be a homicide investigator, because when I was done, he gave me a hug. I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. I've never seen that on, any TV show, but that's what happened. And then, as the day I was supposed to fly back, I got a call from a detective, a very sharp man, who works for the West Fargo Police Department, which is about a 2.5-hour drive to the east. And he told me that Alma had been taken into custody the previous night. So I changed my flight, drove to West Fargo, and interviewed Alma Ahumada Mendoza in the Cass County Jail. She is still there also. There are arrangements being made for the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department to fly Mr. Coleman back to Humboldt County in the next couple of days, and Sergeant Bouchain is going to accompany a correctional deputy and go and pick up Alma. She should be here in the Humboldt County Jail by Sunday or Monday. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, good job.
Congratulations, Chief.
Good job, well done.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public in regard to the staff report?
They don't, I got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
It was for, with Kevin Colville. He said he had a phone meeting with LAFCO on the staff regarding RD on the annexation. So, what's the difference between annexation? Is that what they're actually doing, is an annexation or a?
Yeah, the Rio Dell Volunteer Fire Department, they're actually annexing, I believe it's the Scotia, Stafford, Red Crest districts into one large district.
Okay, well that's what I understood they were doing. This is not the Fortuna that's becoming that part of the river becoming, or part of our city becoming in our district. That's a separate deal.
No, this was actually part of the same application.
Okay.
And we suggested to LAFCO staff that they consider including that portion that's within the city currently under the Fortuna Fire Protection District's jurisdiction, to actually give that jurisdiction authority back to the Rio Dell Fire Protection District, because it is within our city limits.
Okay, so that is being looked at by LAFCO.
If I can jump in here. So the latest on that is the Fortuna Fire District will be taking that item, that request, to their board. If they sign off on it, then I think, it's a pretty clear path forward. If they are not interested in signing off on it, then I think it's probably not going to go anywhere. So really the cards are with the Fortuna Fire District. However, the law and the spirit of the law is certainly within, having the annexation include all areas within the city of Rio Dell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Mayor Garnes, I might add that LAFCO meets bi-monthly, and their next meeting will be in March. So at the earliest, it will come up at that time.
Thank you. Then with the reports, we will move on to special call items, public donations related to River Bluff Cottages Permanent Supportive Housing. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. So you may recall at the last council meeting, staff had brought up the creation of a GoFundMe for supplies for the River Bluff cottages for new residents in the cottages. The council did ask that that item be agendized, so it's returning to the council today. I will say that on the tour we did, find out that the facilities are more furnished than I was originally led to believe, but there certainly are going to be additional needs for the residents over there. So with that, just looking to see if there's any direction for staff or if the council wants to work on an alternative.
Council? I will go first to you since, yes.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. Mayor Pro Tem Woodall and I, between sessions, were talking about individuals, a GoFundMe kind of effort, or individuals going to Dollar General or a similar store and buying $25 to $30 worth of household items that everybody needs so that they can wash their dishes and flush the toilet and carry things to the laundromat. It doesn't take a whole lot of money to do that, and whether it's totally GoFundMe or individuals going to the store and bringing that over to the cottages, I think we both support that.
Okay.
I don't have looking at there seemed like there should be some coordination about what's going on to just.
It does seem like there should be some type of coordination. I don't know if either of you want to lead the coordination. Councilmember Strawn isn't here. She spoke about reaching out to the churches to see if they could organize something. I think there's also the option, because originally Councilmember Johnson had said, as we all have things that we aren't using, that would be something we could do. And that idea was not particularly well received. So I thought a different way also could be if the management created a list of things, and much like a wedding reception, a gift list, a registry, that's what I'm trying to say, something that we could work from, that people then you would know you're not just buying things randomly. That too is another idea. I again, after it was brought up, didn't really know whether that's a city function, or if that's a chamber function, or if that's a community function. So I think really that's what, from my perspective, we need to address, not whether we should go to the store and buy something or what we should do. It's like, whose function is that? And then whoever that function would belong to, then they would take the lead. So.
What, is this something that, you say they have a list?
No, I said that would be, from my perspective, that would be the better way to go about it, because otherwise you're just buying random things.
Well, yeah, had Danco put together a list, or you thought they should put?
I thought they.
What they did, I was just questioning if they could put that in, if we could put that in a newsletter.
Right.
And explain this in written form, that way all the citizens of the Rio Dell
if they wanted
would
to
hear about it, and that I'm not sure how you organize a channel to get it to them, but at least know what kind of things
Items
are,
are-
certain things would be ongoing. It's not like trying to buy a wedding present, it's certain things that you're gonna use, that people are gonna, consumables, or they're going to use items that would typically be that they wouldn't have. If they could list those and make that available to the city, that we let the public know, and then have a place to follow out the donation process. Somebody's gonna have to take a lead on it.
Right.
I was thinking if we as a council could do something without staff involvement, because we are volunteers essentially. And
No, exactly.
that we could do it, and I don't think sometimes it's appropriate to have the staff involved in doing that, you know, for certain people and not everyone. But I would be willing to be on a committee or anything to pursue it.
Pursue it.
How about the resource center down here? Wouldn't that be something that they could be involved in?
That's true. That is actually probably
Did they have a manager already hired?
at the apartments, the housing. Yes, they do.
Okay.
But I would be willing to approach the resource center and the chamber. Speaking of chamber.
Oh, okay. Public comment. Let's have a whole all talked at once.
We missed it last time. I was going to offer. I have no problem. The chamber can spearhead this, as one of the issues is going to be taking in donations and then putting it back out. We're 501c4 or whatever, 506c4 nonprofit. So we can serve that function. What I would need is, say, the council members or somebody to spearhead this and drive it. We're more than willing to take in the donations. Speaking on my own behalf, I'll manage it and I won't get in trouble. Take in the donations, get that list per se from the facility manager, and go make those purchases. And then I think it would be most appropriate for one of you folks to give the donation. But the chamber, no problem. This is a good cause. And as Councilman Johnson says, these folks have nothing. And they're coming in, if we want to see, we don't want this to turn into a disaster, this is a good way of breaking the ice. This is a good way of saying, hey, welcome, let's hope you do well. We encourage you to do well. So I'm all for it. I'm no problem, we'll take care of it. If you guys want to utilize the chamber, we can manage that and we will make it so.
So you
Thank
can
you.
do a GoFundMe as a chamber.
Sure. We could do a GoFundMe, or we could, if you guys could get out there, it works real well. You know, there's a little bit of donation weariness from me showing up and saying, hey, I want money for Christmas lights. Hey, I want money for this, that, this other. But with other people going out there and saying that the chamber is where you make the donation, it's being spearheaded by such and such committee. Of the chamber, of this, it doesn't matter to me. However you guys want to make it so, we're happy to process it, go out, make the purchases, and then have a big to-do and ribbon cutting, and here you go. And these are for your residents. And I'll be the first one personally to donate $100. How's that? I commit to it.
All right. Thank you, Nick. So,
I like that idea.
would you like to
Well,
committee up, or
huh?
would you like to committee?
I will
Committee?
committee, and
Okay.
I will work with
Committee?
Nick.
Sure.
Okay.
Also.
Yes, and so council members Johnson and Woodall will become the ad hoc committee to the Danco
Residents.
Welcome Residents idea. Okay.
You know, just a couple thoughts. I missed the tour last Monday because I had another engagement at lunch, but during my normal jogging by there, which I've done probably close to 100 times since the project was conceived, I've stopped many times and talked to the superintendent. And last week after the tour, why I was jogging by and he stopped me and said, "I thought you were on the council." I said, "Yes, I missed the tour, I know. I had another gig going on." They said, "Well, do you like to tour it now?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I had a private one-on-one tour, and I told him at that time that I wanted this project to be an absolutely over-the-top, raging success. Not just for Danco, but for the community and the residents that are going to be living there. And I was further reminded that, you know, Fortuna's a warm-hearted, or Fortuna's a friendly city, and we are the warm-hearted city. I think that's our logo.
It is.
I want us to live up to that logo and be warm-hearted to everybody. You know, but for the grace of God, your 5 council members would be living there. I also asked Rob, I said, my wife does does jigsaw puzzles, and she's got a bunch that are from, you know, 300 pieces up to 1,000 pieces. And I asked, is that something that could be donated? He said, absolutely. So even though they have said they don't want certain things, that may not be the total story. And maybe everybody nobody's got, I don't think, the total story. So I think it'd be, you know, I think we can contact Danco and find out just really what they do need and get it to them. Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you. Okay. Now on to discussion on Measure Z grant application. Page 14.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes. Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. I'll just go ahead and turn this over to Chief Connor.
So as you're likely aware, Measure Z funds the part-time clerical position in the police department, has for several years now. Last year, we asked for a very similar contribution from Measure Z to what we had the year before. That was about $33,500. They pared that down to approximately $23,000, applying a 60% cut across the board to all the proposals who hadn't already made significant voluntary reductions in what they were requesting. It became apparent at that point in time that it was much wiser to ask for more than you really expected to get and be able to pare that down than it was to be realistic and ask for something that you thought was reasonable. Consequently, we are going to ask for more this year. So we are going to submit 3 applications. One is for a new patrol truck that will replace one of the aging SUVs. Both of the SUVs have approximately 90,000 miles on them, and while they are still fully functional, they are beginning to have increasing maintenance costs. The other thing, non-clerical position that we're going to ask for funds for is mobile display terminals for our patrol vehicles. As one of the major capital improvements in the police department this year was the changing to the rims from Sun West Ridge case management system. That system allows us to use terminals in our car, which has GPS so that the dispatchers can keep track of us. Also has computers so that we can access all the data, including the case management system in our vehicle. Gives our officers something else to distract them so that they get into more accidents. The approximate cost for that for all 4 vehicles would be $12,000. And then we were going to ask for $35,000 and then a little bit more for Sabrina's position. And hope that you know, we can voluntarily reduce or eliminate some of the other options and hope that we get most of that money, because that is our number 1 priority for Measure Z funding. Happy to answer any questions.
Council, questions?
This is just for my information. The police record specialist one, is that Sabrina?
That's
okay.
Yeah.
The public have any questions? Measure Z funds? No? Hearing none, bring it back to the council. And that was just for input?
See if
There's
there's
no.
any input from the council if you want to, see a different applications. I would just add to what Chief Connors stated, that the Measure Z revenue pulled out of the city of Rio Dell. We did a calculation, and it's approximately $143,000 annually.
Yeah.
So the amount that we pull back out of the grant that the county has awarded the city is $23,442 in this last fiscal year. So the city is a net contributor to Measure Z. What we have done since the inception of Measure Z is take a relatively modest portion of that tax revenue. The county's been very gracious, and the Board of Supervisors has been very helpful to the city in making sure that Rio Dell's getting at least some portion of that amount back. So even if all three of Chief Connors' requests would be approved by the Board of Supervisors, it's still even is a net contribution back to the county for the Measure Z funding.
Thank you. No. No, I don't think there's an action, unless you wanted to suggest a change.
No, I
And
just said
request.
possible.
Yeah. So we move on to ordinances. Second reading and adoption of ordinance 378-2019, establishing a water-efficient landscape ordinance, Chapter 13.40 of the Rio Dell Municipal Code.
Mayor Garnes, members of the council, this item was brought to you back on January 7th of this year. Again, a little reminder, this is a mandated state requirement regarding efficient use of water resources, basically pertaining to landscaping. The state basically gave us two options, to either adopt the state model or to adopt our own more restrictive model. We recommended that we adopt the state's model, not a more restrictive model. The council have concurred with the original recommendation, voted 4-0, and Councilmember Strawn was not at that meeting. All new developments are subject to this new ordinance, including residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional projects. With that, if you have any questions of staff, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If not, we recommend that you adopt and approve ordinance number 3728-2020, establishing Chapter 13.40, the model efficient water landscaping ordinance.
Excuse me. Okay, so, wait. We are discussing 378-2019, and then the first introduction is the next one, the 380-2020?
Yeah, originally when
Are
I
they the
first
same, or-
scheduled this item, it was back in 2019. And then when we go 2020, the numbers refer to the current calendar year. So it is 2020, since we'll be adopting it in February of 2020.
378-2020.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kevin, you said that Danco met all these requirements with.
Danco actually doesn't have any irrigation proposed.
Oh,
They're both of their plants are native, or basically don't require hardly any watering at all once they get established. So they didn't have to go through this. And I actually submitted the report to the state already, indicating that to the state.
Danco, when I toured, we talked a little bit about this, and Danco is going to be watering, probably hand watering, for a couple years to get plant establishment. But after that, there's enough water table presence there to not have to worry about it in the future. Yeah.
So is there a motion to accept the second reading and adoption of ordinance 378-2020? I just caught myself. Would the public care to make comment on the adoption of ordinance 378-2020, establishing water efficiency landscaping?
I just have a question. Where's this? What is water efficient landscaping? What do you mean?
It's basically so you don't waste water.
So you can't have, is this talking about lawns and sprinklers, or what are you,
Over a certain size, if it's over 5,000 square feet, you're subject to it.
Okay, so anything under that? Okay.
Yeah, if you're under that, you're not subject to it.
Yeah, okay.
It's the larger projects that are subject to it.
Right, so that really doesn't affect much in the town. And like you said, Danco's not really, does this really affect anybody? Except the lawn out here, maybe.
At this point, it doesn't really affect anything in the town, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a state
It's a
mandated
state
requirement that we adopt
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
So when we do get a project proposed, it does include more than 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
They actually have to provide drought-tolerant plants.
So this is under 5,000 square feet up front?
It is, but this is already established. This has been here forever.
Okay.
Well, since the 60s anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Garnes, I would move that we accept the second reading of ordinance number 378, 2020, and adopt it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion passes 4-0. Introduction and first reading of ordinance number 380-2020, amending Chapter 13.05 of the Water Rates and Regulations and Chapter 13.10 Sewer Rates and Regulations of the Rio Dell Municipal Code to allow compliance with Senate Bill 998.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. The proposed ordinance language is in your packet on pages 40 through 45. The council last received an update on this particular subject at your last meeting back on January 21st. This is the first reading of ordinance number 380. And as the mayor mentioned, it would amend chapters 13 of the water rates and sewer rate regulations in Rio Dell. And this is also in compliance with Senate Bill 998. So what we're asking the council to do is open the public hearing to receive public input and deliberate on this particular item. And continue the consideration of this item and its approval and adoption of the proposed ordinance at the meeting of February 18th, 2020. And again, that's for the second reading and final adoption of the ordinance. With that, I will go ahead and just quickly turn it over to Cheryl, who can provide just another update on this particular language, and then see if there's any comment.
So the purpose of this update is to remove all of the language that's in the existing ordinance related to shut-off of water, and those are now going to be required to be put into a policy, which will come back to your council in March. If I'm like really ambitious, maybe we'll have a draft for the second reading. And it goes into effect on April 1st. And basically there was a few items in here where we made changes having to do with redundant language, removing sections that were shut off related, such as you can shut up, water can be shut off for reasons not having to do with non-payment. So Senate Bill 998 doesn't affect the city's ability to turn off water in an emergency or to make repairs. And so that's remains in here and was clarified. And then there was some minor changes regarding the dates that staff was having a hard time with. It's the date from the billing, not from the first day of the month, and so that was changed. And that is basically it. And I can answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you.
Is this going to cause any chaos in the billing of water and sewer? That's the first question. And does this apply to the sewer portion of the bill also? Is the second part of the question.
I believe staff hopes to not create chaos, and we're working really hard to communicate and work on this and try to mitigate. Basically, as far as it looks to me moving forward, we're gonna try to keep the processes similar as to what we're doing now. We're just going to like move it out 30 days. So it's, like staff will still send out notices about the same time of the month. They'll just be for a longer period of time. The payment plans are probably more challenging than the shut off, and getting that under control and figuring out how that will work is part of what the policy will discuss. And what was the second question?
Well, the first is what kind of chaos did this cause? And the second is, are we going to apply this to both ends of the water bill, that is the water and the sewer?
We are going to discuss that with the city attorney when we work on the policy.
Okay. Also, third part of the question is, in the original bill, I remember that there was something about the poverty level, and you have to give special deference to people that are 200% of the poverty level or something like that.
So there's one section that basically requires that a person who has a note from a primary care person, a physician, and is considered to be below a certain level, basically being on CalWORKs, or there's a list of items, and is willing to go into a payment plan or deferred payment. They have to do all three, then you can't shut their water off. And they have to do it before the water shut off. You can't get your water shut off and then come in and ask. It has to be done prior.
So,
and then the next part was, there's another section about delinquent fees, and we were already compliant with that part. We don't currently charge interest, and we don't currently charge more for the delinquent or turning the water back on than the requirement of that 200% of poverty, so it doesn't really impact us.
yeah. So how do people establish that they're potentially in that poverty zone level?
So the list of the three requirements has a list of what you do, but certifying that you're in that poverty level, that would be, certifying that they are, providing, that's why there's showing that you're on CalWORKs, or showing that you're on Medicare, or showing that you're on those types is the best way to demonstrate it. Other than that, the like single person household 200% of poverty is, I want to say, I'm doing it off the cuff because I didn't,
sure,
but it's like around 26,000 for a single person, and then I think 30 in the low 30s for two. So it's actually, that's.
Yeah, well, when 48% of the population in Rio Dell is on Medi-Cal, it tells me that, it's a pretty high percentage of folk.
So basically, the people that they would need to have the primary or doctors know. I'm just going to use the term doctors.
Yeah, sure.
And the proof of financial need and a payment plan. You have to do all three. So there may be a large number of people, but going on a payment plan is not. It's like credit card debt. I mean, basically, you're still going to have your current water bill that has to be paid on time. Then you're going to have a payment plan that you have to make on your prior plan. So unless a person had a temporary kind of thing they were trying to overcome, and you're only allowed to do it once in a period of time. You can't have 2 or 3 payment plans going at the same time. So, but you may end up with people getting on payment plans and realizing how difficult it is to then manage 2 things that you have to pay.
It sounds like it's a colossal headache in the making.
Perhaps a little chaos in that.
I'm just making sure
It-
he's
Thank you,
finished.
Cheryl.
It potentially adds to the administrative burden of,
Yes.
of administering
Yes.
this system, which then creates additional cost for the end user, so.
Yeah.
And there is nothing in SB 998 that says you can't charge a fee for a payment plan, for the actual cost of administering a payment plan. So that's something to consider in the future.
But that isn't a part of what you're doing. I mean, the policy that you're establishing
The
now.
policy most likely will not include that, but I believe
It's
next
optional.
time the fee schedule is evaluated and there's more information on the staff time involved in setting up a payment plan, that might be something the city wants to pursue.
Thank you.
Will our billing program for the water be able to handle this?
I probably should. That's again why we're trying to keep it as close to what we're doing now and just scooting it out. So as far as the payment plan goes, we've created a methodology to deal with that where it's basically gonna come outside of the current of our billing system. So a person would get their current bill, and that current bill would have to be manually adjusted to show that you had a payment plan payment due, which can be done.
So multiple handlings of different people?
It's gonna be a lot more hands-on. And I'm sure as this progresses, because every single water district in the state has to do this, that more programming changes will be made and that a more
Software.
consistent methodology will be created. We have been in contact with the software vendor who didn't seem to be aware of another jurisdiction facing this, which I find amazing, but maybe we are like ahead of the curve and we were the first one to call.
Thank you.
Do I understand there's this one section, 1310.160, reconnection fees? Is that are the reconnection fees being eliminated?
Okay, there was a great amount of discussion about this 1310-160. So this is in the sewer so there's two chapters or two sections of chapter 13. There's 1305 and 1310. 1305 is water and 1310 is sewer. This reconnection fee said it was $200, which there is no water connection fee for $200. And I discussed it with staff, and we believe that this was actually left over from some prior changes that were made, and so we don't ever disconnect sewer.
I was going to say, how do you disconnect the
You
sewer?
can't really disconnect sewer, and it's redundant because in the water section, there's a reconnection fee for water. So I came to the conclusion there were two issues. One is it was language that was outdated from a time when we used to actually disconnect sewer that we don't do anymore. And the other one is that in 1310-250, it says charges as may be required in this chapter, and the chapter is 1310. So I added there that it also includes RDMC 13.05290, which is the reconnection fees that are contained in the water section, to make it clear that if your water is turned off for failure to pay your utility bill, including sewer, that the reconnection fee is covered in the water section.
And where is that? Is that in this same ordinance that we're looking
Yeah,
at?
13.05290.
I see that. Where are the
Oh, gosh.
where are the penalties?
Did I miss that? Or is
It says
not?
there's outstanding bills. Penalties are charged in conjunction with
It's not in here
05290. I don't.
13.05290 isn't here because I didn't change it.
130529.
It is not listed because there were no changes to it. This only has chapters that were changed.
So we don't see what
We don't.
1305,290 is. We don't.
I apologize for that.
Could we get a copy of that put in our box?
Yes, we can get a copy of that. I started by having the whole section. It was 67 pages, and so then I went back and forth about Yes, I think.
Well, and again, it's been brought up, and I haven't brought it up for a long time because I pretty much got tired of bringing it up. But there are some inconsistencies, I think, with particularly our water rate, the way we charge our water rates and stuff, how our bill is calculated. And it's different in all the other cities that I've looked at in our local jurisdictions, Arcadia, Eureka, Fortuna, McKinleyville. Ours is more complicated, seemingly, to figure out how our base rate, particularly in the water and sewer, is calculated. So I'm hoping that when we do this study, that will be something we have a chance to address and at least get it in a simpler form. And if there is some inequity in it, that we can resolve that. Because we have more information now than when we first put this in. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing, but as city manager mentioned, it's probably been about 5 years. So we have that data with our water and sewer as we've restructured our rates. So I look forward to that study in that regard. That's all I have.
Thank you. So, now my page 38. Will the public have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong. That the city has provisions to ascertain whether a household meets the poverty level and therefore a consideration for their water bill. But the city has no means of finding out whether a household has considerations for sewage?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't either. But that's what I was told by Mr. Kyle there, which I admire. But anyways, it doesn't make sense to me that city can consider a household proving that they are poverty level and therefore have a consideration. Yet a household cannot be proved that they have a limited usage of the sewer and therefore be considered somehow differently for the city. I'm just questioning that. Does that make any sense? Am I making any sense?
I don't know. If you're making sense to Kyle, that's all that matters.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay,
so what the state is looking to do is, ultimately they want to identify how many folks are in that poverty category, and so what it will evolve into is reporting that out to the state of California. The problem ultimately is if you provide a discount for poverty status or age or other factors, that difference still has to be made up somewhere. So it has to either be a subsidy from another fund, or other ratepayers end up picking up that additional cost to run a program like a 15% discount for seniors or something along those lines. So that funding hasn't been identified in the Senate Bill 998. While the state says it's a priority, they have allocated no money to actually implementing any actual effective program. And what they've actually done is created a more complex system for the city to administer, which then actually potentially, in this case it won't, but in other jurisdictions it's possible it could lead to increase in costs for compliance with the law. So under state law, the state cannot pass on costs onto local government, can't pass on unfunded mandates. But one of the ways that they do it is it's technically not an unfunded mandate, because when we do our rate adjustment, then it's the ratepayers who end up funding any cost increases associated with these types of programs. So there was also another piece of legislation that the state considered last year, which would have added about $1 a month to everybody's bill to do programs primarily in the Central Valley of California. So there's a lot of different angles that the state has put forward, including raising rates, but they have never put any money towards discounts for seniors or anything like that directly to the city.
But that consideration, the Patmores have 3 families contributing to that household. I have 1 family, 1 income contributing to that household. They have 6 adults that are working that are contributing to that household. And therefore, why can't that compensation for my reduced usage and reduced price can't be compensated by these 6 adults working, I might add, working adults? And you know what? Here's the truth. I can afford this, and I love the city, and I want to contribute to it. It's all about fairness. It should not be that I'm paying the same amount of money as the Patmores have 6 adults working, and yet they're paying the same amount of money. There's got to be some way of
Equity.
yeah, and my heart goes out to the people like my friend Robin, who is living on a very limited income. I'm blessed. I have a pension, and I'm not complaining because I can't afford it, because I can't afford it.
Okay, now, I'm not trying to stop you. I just have to have a point of clarification.
Yeah.
Are we talking about, is this conversation we're having now, is it about this chapter, or are we
probably
straying away to the Brown Act?
It's,
Because we need to rein it back.
The item before the council today is really for us to comply with state law. This isn't, a choice to do this, or voluntary choice, but like a lot of the rates really that get charged get dictated by regulatory policy that's set at the state level. And so either the city complies with it, or ultimately, we choose not to, and we're not in compliance, we're not eligible for any grants, we're potentially, the city is fined, which is ultimately, when we're talking about the city, we're talking about ratepayers, that sort of thing. So this item is really to be in compliance with SB 998. And we're going to have 2 other bites at the apple after this. There will be the second reading, but then we also have to introduce the resolution to create the policy. So they're basically, in this particular item, asking us to take most of what you see as deletions out of the municipal code, and they're basically asking for it to be deleted and then placed into a resolution. So we'll be bringing that potentially at the next meeting, or the meeting after that.
Okay. And when it comes back, I just want us to all be on the same page here. When it comes back, these are still 2 separate items.
Yes.
This issue that we're talking with the public here and Susan, and this amendment to the Rio Dell Code based on Senate Bill 998 are 2 separate things, right?
Yeah.
So
I think what Ms. Nesson is referring to is something that can be addressed and discussed at a rate assessment discussion. And so, and we had that because one of the other discussions was whether we wanted to go, if you recall 5 years ago, was to discuss going to 100% use-based system. And so there were several options laid out for the council. One which on one extreme is strictly just a straight fee for the use of the system, which is historically what the city has had and what other municipalities have had. Right. And then the purely opposite end of that spectrum is one that's 100% use-based. And so all of those options and everything in between was presented to the council at that rate study, and that's really the fundamental central discussion that would be had again at a future rate.
Okay, but that would be, the topic would be rate studies, not Senate Bill 990. I'm just simply trying to get us online here.
That was for water, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a comment.
Yeah.
One of the things that, and you're probably going to hear this a lot more from me as you watch what our state is doing. Like they're kind of the bad guy in the picture as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion. The state, and I'll mention it in one of my council report on the RCEA, but the state is really good about coming up with these things they want you, these processes to do. This is an example of that. They come up with a kind of a loose worded system and say this is what the cities have to comply with. And in the same breath, they don't do anything to subsidize it. They don't do anything to support it. They just throw it at the city. The city gets to figure it out and deal with it. And then the state's saying we're fixing a busted wheel, which they're just putting it on a different wheel. And so what we can do about that, I don't know. It's part of the constraints that the city government is trying to do this for. We have really strict rules about what we can talk about, but they don't comply to them. They don't have to comply to that. And so cities do a good job, and then the state just makes up more rules. I'm done. Maybe.
Okay. Oh,
I'd like to say something to
I'm
this.
sorry.
Oh, it's not,
Public
it's
comment
not a
is
public.
over.
No, it's,
Did
it's
I not
over?
bring it back, or were we still talking? Does public still have it?
You hadn't closed
Okay,
it.
go.
Okay, well, I mean, I wanted to say that also, just real quick, that, I feel you, because I'm left picking up the slack at $250 a month for 3 people.
Okay.
Which
That
I
was-
make over the poverty rate. But real quick,
okay.
so how do we get it on the agenda to have a rate discussion?
We are going to have a rate discussion,
Okay.
because we're going to have a rate study and
Okay.
a whole discussion about it. I can't tell you right
Right.
now when that will be, but it is coming up.
Okay, because there was a mention of you were going to have a study, and it's on the last year you guys approved it, and you were saying maybe next year you guys will get to it for doing the study. Is that, you said you didn't know if you were going to be able to get to it
City
this
manager
year?
will set the date, but depending on priorities.
Okay.
Of what
I'm just curious as to kind of priority and how to get the ball rolling on it, and as instead of, because if it was approved last year, and so it's sitting there, and then Kyle said we might not get to it till next year, so I'm just curious as to get an idea of is this going to really
When
be
it
pushed
was.
off to 2021?
But the year starts in June, right? We're talking
The fiscal year
Yeah.
21 starts in June 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
So,
okay,
and that-
Stonewall. Okay.
so that, I don't know.
I think it was between now and June, yeah. July 1st.
So you are going to discuss rates soon, like in this year, hopefully?
Yes.
Do you anticipate that?
Do we anticipate that?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yes.
I wanted to hear that, thank you.
Okay. Now,
Mayor Garnes,
bringing
I
it
would-
back to the council.
I would move that we accept the first reading of ordinance 380-2020.
I'll second that.
I don't even know if it's a thing. Okay. Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Council reports and communications. Anybody? Go ahead, Councilmember Wilson.
I did go to the RCA meeting it was whatever the fourth Thursday of the month is, of January, and they presented, they're always working on being able to buy this power that the states, we're trying to get, everybody's supposed to be clean power. Humboldt County is supposed to be clean power by 100% by the year 2025, instead of the state being, I think, by 35 or something like that. It's a pretty big task to ask to make that happen. But in the process, somewhere along the line, the state came up with another one of these deals where they decided that the state needs X amount of megawatts more to run the state. And so they've broken that out, and they've assigned, I think Humboldt County is 3,000 megawatts or something that we have to come up with by year, and it's done incrementally. Now, how you do that and how their rules are for deciding it, is the more you dig into it, it doesn't sound like it's very well thought out. But these are things, again, that the state is, particularly on the electrical level, is trying to do it. The state of California wants to take over the PG&E. We've, as a council, have sent out a letter along with other cities that we would like to see the PG&E entity broken up and made smaller because it's the largest utility in the United States. Much like they did Standard Oil years ago, they broke up the AT&T, they did these things so that it's not like essentially a monopoly. And so stay tuned to this. You know, you can come in, if you want to go to the RCA meetings, or the fourth Thursday of each month, and they're meeting Eureka at the Water District Building. And it's not a simple matter, but people are trying to address it, both from the cities and the county members are trying to deal with this.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson?
Tomorrow I will be going up to Crescent City for Last Chance Grade Stakeholders Meeting, and at that meeting I think a couple things will be addressed. One is the consultant that was going to do a lot of the plan preparation or pre-plan preparation, the environmental document phase. Huge contract in the range of $30 million will be presented to our group. Also, there will be a discussion about a portion of the second phase of geotechnical studies, and this will in part require helicopters to ferry in men and equipment to drill sites, and an environmental document has been out on the street, and comments have been received by Caltrans, and we will get an update on that process. But that phase of geotechnical work should take place this next summer and fall. Thank you, Mayor Garnes.
Councilmember Woodall?
Yeah, this weekend I went on a ride-along with Officer Landry, and it was an eye-opener. And I think sometimes I had an unreasonable expectations of our officers, because when you don't know what they're really doing and what it really involves, you just don't know. And there was a DUI, and it took probably 3 hours to do it thoroughly, and that involved going clear into the jail. And had another officer not been there, it could have even been longer. And then even after I left, she still had to write reports. That's a big part of your day, and I never realized how just one stop could take that long. And like I said, it was an eye-opener, and she was wonderful. She explained everything to me, things that I just never realized, so I'm really glad I did it. And I would encourage any of you that haven't done a ride-along to do it.
Thank you. 2 weeks ago, I think, 2 weeks ago, I went to Sacramento to an environmental quality policy committee meeting with the League of California Cities, and our work plan for the year will, the number one item was climate change and climate
Sea level.
That's sea level rise, but what to do about it. It starts with an R, I'm just blanking on it. But, and storm drain issues, because it's one of the constants from north to south, east to west in California, storm drain issues. And so that is what we are tackling this year. No, it isn't remediation. It's climate change and climate. But it is the word itself is saying what we are going to do to start trying to fix it.
Climate action plan?
No, it really starts with an R. No. We could be here a long time. I don't remember the word. But yeah, that might be the best. Resiliency. That was it. So,
Mayor
okay.
Garnes, did the council authorize you to respond to immediate requests from the league?
They did not. I was actually going to ask for that permission, and it's, thank you. It's when a bill comes up that needs immediate action. It's going on the floor of the assembly, and the league itself is basically a lobbying agency for the cities, for all the California cities, and it allows for every city, no matter the size of the city, to have an equal vote on issues. LA, 1 vote, Rio Dell, 1 vote. So that's the way that they manage that. And so if a bill comes up that they either oppose it or they support it, or I should say you sometimes oppose it unless amended, you support it with amendments, and then we work through what we feel the policy there's 7 different policy committees. And so each one, ours is environmental, there's a traffic safety, there's governance, so there's 7 different committees. And so the bill that is particular to your policy committee, they will send out on occasion, not often, an action alert because something's going on the floor that they need to have as many cities, as much support to support or oppose the bill. And so they ask for the cities to then send a letter. If it comes up on Wednesday, like tomorrow, and we're not going to have a meeting for 2 weeks, and it's going to go on the Senate floor or the Assembly floor on Thursday or Friday, waiting 2 weeks to come and have a conference with the council it's kind of useless because we've missed our opportunity to have our voice heard. And so that's what this is what Councilmember Johnson was just referring to, that I was going to bring to the council and ask permission to address those issues when they arise.
Is this something we need to agendize, Kyle, because it's new information?
Yeah, we can bring it.
Okay. Also, just for those of you who don't know how really state government works, now is the time that bills are coming before the various branches of legislature, and in a typical year there'll be 2,000 to 2,500 bills that are submitted between the Assembly and the Senate. And of those, about 10% typically are bills that affect us, that is city government. And so the League of California Cities is winnowing through those 2,000 plus bills to get to the 200 plus bills that they need to totally investigate and get back to all of the cities, all 465 cities or whatever are in the members of the league. So, thank you, Mayor.
And just as an example, this is passed and this bill died on the floor last week. But last year they tried to, Senator Weiner tried to push a bill through that would actually require cities to, for every one liquor store, they had to, no, every 6 liquor stores, you had to, not optional, have one dispensary, one cannabis dispensary. They were trying to force that on the cities. And that was one of the things that the league fought back, the cities fought back. You know, you had to write a letter to cities to oppose that bill. And that bill died on the floor last week, so we did a good job on that one, yay. But that's the kind of thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So.
I thought we already gave you authority to vote.
No, but no, this is
different.
Yeah, this is a different situation.
With that, Mayor Garnes, I'd move for adjournment.
Second?
Second.
Yep.
Meeting adjourned.
Nick.